If you haven't been on any of the other ones that we did one about foils a few weeks back, and Pete Merhoff ran that. Pete is actually pretty involved in our surf designs as well, so he's on this, and if there's some questions that are related to the boards, that there's Pete right there. There's questions related to the boards that he's worked on, he's going to chime in as well. The other one that we did was about bindings. We have a lot more coming up, so just stay tuned on Instagram and any of the other social media feeds that we're sending these out. We think it's really cool. One thing, if you guys are like me, I don't usually learn everything the first time I hear it. So that is why I'm recording this. And those of you that have attended and the others that signed up that haven't shown up yet, we're going to send out the recording via email. So you guys will get a chance to watch that. If you want to watch any of the old ones, they're up on our website right now, different sections on the site. And yeah, basically the way this is going to go, Jimmy is going to give his vision, his ideas of how we've created our surf line. And throughout, if you guys have any questions, you'll probably notice you're all muted right now. It might be a little chaotic if everybody was just talking at the same time. So we're going to leave everybody muted, but you could definitely send us a chat. And if it's something related to the actual board Jimmy's talking about at the time, I'll chime in and let Jimmy know there's a question. Otherwise, at the end, we're going to do a question and answer as well. So, feel free to send us chats. We'll be keeping up with that. And without further ado, we call him the Wake Guru. Here's Jimmy Redmond, founder of Liquid Force and master shaper of most, if not all, of our boards. So I'm going to let Jimmy take it over.
All right. Hey, great. I'm stoked you guys have joined us today. I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world because I've got one of the best jobs in the world. How do I share my screen? Yeah, I got you. Okay. I want to bring up the presentation so you guys can see, follow through board by board. Okay, I'm just going to hit that, right? This one.
Let's expand. Nope. Let's expand.
Expand it. Little technical difficulty. We're way better in the shaping bay than on a computer, as you can see. All right. So I want to talk about Wakesurf boards, and if it isn't obvious already that the whole sport of wakeboarding all started off with us surfing behind boats, and then we started catching air, and this is about the time foot straps were being put on windsurf boards to do the same thing. So it seemed like a lot more fun to do that than to spend another 4 years in college. So that's where the first wakeboard companies came from. And then 10 years later, joined forces with Tony Finn to start Liquid Force. And here we are, our 25th anniversary, talking about the very thing that started the entire sport of wakeboarding, which was just surfing behind your boat. Since then, everything's really evolved. We've learned a lot. Materials have advanced. Boat wakes have just made the sport so much more enjoyable, and it's allowed us to really go nuts on experimenting. There's 4 major discussion points that I'd like to cover in this webinar. Main one is, why do we have so many shapes? And I'll tell you about that. Then differentiating between surf style and skim style, and which that'll help you kind of figure out what board's best for you. Why does Liquid Force have so many boards? And then at the very end, that'd be a great time for Q&A. So maybe figure out what's the best board for you, or comparing one board to another, previous boards you've ridden, where you want to take your riding, and just let's see where it goes. So why so many different shapes? Well, we've got 5 basic series of boards. These are categorized based on how techy they are, what materials go into it, how advanced the shapes are, and also pricing. So at the top of the list it's the Atomic series. And you'll notice we've got 2 surf style shapes, the Space Pod, the Bonzer Bat, and then our skim style is Austin Keen's Pro Model. Next up is the Fleet series. These are all around fun shapes, but they're still made in the high-end construction. Sean Watson rides the Dart. Tommy Shishane's original skim we brought back, the TC Skim, which is an unreal performance skim shape. And then the Wildcat, which is just a user-friendly all-around skim shape that everybody can ride, that even comes in a Grom size. Then we move into a whole new way of making boards. This is created, basically it's a marriage of the two best things: a board that's super hard to ding, but's really light and still gives you performance. All of these shapes in what we call our Durasurf series feature a really lightweight core, but they're made with a molded outer shell that makes it virtually ding proof, but doesn't sacrifice very much performance. And they all feature, you know, removable fins with fin boxes, so you can try all kinds of different options. And then rounding out the fun list is the Fun Unlimited series. And this is basically where Peter and I get to have fun just making boards, maybe try a weird idea, maybe go for a new trippy concept, or maybe just make a fun shape for everybody. And in this, we have the Avant, which is a really unique board Peter developed. And then the Guapo, which is the funnest miniature longboard that anybody can ride and have a blast behind pretty much any boat, regardless of the size of the wake. And then our last series are the Breakthrough series. And these are boards that get people into the sport. It's, you know, to get people started. We've got the Rocket, which is our surf style shape. The Swami comes in two sizes. It's our skim shape. And then the Grommy is our kids board. These are made with a polyurethane core. They're a little heavier. Basically, they're made just like a wakeboard, super strong and inexpensive. So moving into the tech of what's going on, this is why we have so many boards, and this is how to differentiate between something that's an Atomic, something that's a Durasurf, or something that's made like in the Breakthrough series. And you'll see the core differences. You can reference all this stuff on our website. But the big deal is it all starts off with the core. And for our Atomic, the Fleet, the Fun Unlimited, and the Durasurf, they all feature an EPS core, and that's expanded polystyrene. It's super lightweight. It allows you to make, you know, a performance board. It allows you to shape a board really easily. And depending on which construction, in our high-end construction boards, the Atomics and the Fleets, it's just like a surfboard blank. It has an internal glass stringer, and then depending on what the board is, we'll lay it up with different technical fabrics that can maybe make a thin board act a little stiffer, like for instance on the Keen, or give you extra impact on the deck, where we combine this trippy material called a Negra with carbon. Gives the board a great look, but it also gives it unreal strength. On our Durasurf line, which are like the Pods and several other boards I'm going to go through, the Primo, the core is still EPS. It's a slightly denser version of EPS than our lightest boards, but it doesn't have a stringer. So you end up with a really lightweight core to start with. Then because of the way we wrap the glass, we actually use the glass wrapping the rails, creating like a parabolic stringer, similar to like a Firewire surfboard, same kind of layup. And then we wrap the thing in a pre-molded vacuum formed shell, which gives it a really durable outer shell and tough finish. And then at the bottom is our standard construction, or molded construction. And that's basically making a wake surfer just like a wakeboard. A dense PU core, glass wrap, and then a hard skin around it that makes it super durable. Another reason we have so many boards is because, you know, all of these wake surfers, they all start off as shapes. They all start off basically as experiments and fun. And different boards, different outlines, and different hull configurations give you different performance features. So you'll notice, now what this is a really cool, these images that I'm showing you, this is a flow analysis of the pressure difference that's happening, where there's more drag, where there's less drag. And, you know, drag basically gives you control. Like a fin causes drag, a channel causes drag. And then where you'll see it those are areas where you'll see it get red or in the yellow. And then when you see the blue areas, those are areas of the least amount of drag or lift. And that gets generated by things like concaves. So you see, like all the way over on the left side, that's a simple single concave board, like the shape of the dart. So you got a nice big area of lift going through the center of the board. Then as you move into other shapes, where we do double concaves, or then we integrate channels, you're combining lift and drag for that trade-off of control versus looseness. And where do you want that to be? Do you want a super slippery board, say like the Austin Keen's skim, or do you want something that's grippy but still provides drive, like a space pod? So this next thing, what I want to talk about is, this is the second discussion point, is what's the big difference between surf style and skim style? And basically what I'm showing you is, on one side of the screen, this is an output from the master shape 3D files that generate the computer programs that'll cut their blanks before they're finished shaped and then glassed. And this is an example of the SpacePod 4.4. And basically, a surf style board is going to be thicker. It's going to have more volume. So it's going to have more float. You'll see the number there, 18.7. That's 18.7 liters of volume. So the higher that number is, the more float there is, the more weight it'll support. But typically, every surf style board is going to have more tail rocker, more in the nose, but also a lot more in the tail. So it makes the board a little slower, but it makes it turn, obviously, a lot easier. And because the board's floaty and it's sitting on top of the water and it's got a lot of rocker, the way you ride the board is it's a driving style. You have larger fins, and you use those larger fins for projection. Compare that to a skim style board. It's basically, you take all of that and kind of reverse it. The board I'm showing you is Austin's, the middle size of Austin's Pro model. And you'll see, the volume drops all the way down to 11. That's a huge difference. So skim style is primarily relying on the surface area and the fact that it's got a really low rocker. So you're basically gliding along the water. And what's projecting you forward is the fact that you're on a super low rockered, large surface area with super hard rails. And typically, all the skims will feature a hard rail going at least through the midpoint. And in a lot of cases on the performance ones, the hard rail will go nose to tail. So it makes a board that you can unweight very easily. You can slip and make it slide. And you control the board by checking your rail and using your rail rather than the fin. Because, for instance, on Austin's board, the fin that would go on a Keen is only 1.5 inches deep, whereas the big side fins that go on the pod are 4.5 inches. So it's a considerable difference and a totally different style. They're both super fun ways to ride, but they're just completely different. So I'm starting off with the first board, top of the line in our Atomic series, and this is the Space Pod. You can see Harley here ripping on the Space Pod, and it comes in 3 sizes. Thing about the Space Pod, here's a really cool image of it. You can see the deck view of it, and this deck material, that's what I'm talking about in the technical fabric. Those stripes you're seeing are carbon, and then it's kind of hard to see. Maybe you can see it good on your picture. Is there's a crisscross pattern of this white material, and that's this stuff called a negra. It's really great on impact strength, but it doesn't add a lot of weight. So what we've done is we've taken a performance shape that's actually been moved into our Durasurf series, then upgraded it, thinned out the profile, added a little extra rocker, redefined the bottom crisper, and then integrated it with this high-tech material to make a really lightweight performance board. And that's our Space Pod. Next up is the Bonzer Bat. And this is a Pete Merhoff shape that's inspired by a very famous group of surfers out of Oxnard that were the first guys to introduce single to double concave into surfboards, and then really exaggerate it and come up with a fin system to complement the action that happens with single to double concave. So Pete, you want to tell people some cool things about this Bonzer Bat? I think you're muted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
the
here's
bonds are yeah. So the bonds are bat. Kind of the idea behind it was I saw within the ocean surf world that there was kind of this resurgence in this really cool board that was developed back in the 70s. And you know, in surfing, they were kind of reimagining it as kind of a small wave board, a really fast small wave board. And I thought, man, it would be a really cool concept to bring into the wake surf world, because that's essentially what we're dealing with, is a relatively small but steep wave. And so the bonds are back kind of came from that. And like Jimmy was explaining a little bit earlier on the hull shape, you know, you have this kind of hourglass hull double to single concave, where the water pressure right in the middle of the board is relatively light, and so the water accelerates as it comes from the middle of the board out through the tail to make a really kind of fast board. But with the addition of these angled fins in, these super canted fins at about 19 degrees, it kind of brings that whole concept into more of a kind of a 3D element. So, you know, instead of the water just kind of shooting down the board and shooting off the board, now it has a really nice surface to roll up and over cleanly on these really canted fins, and to kind of give you this really cool three-dimensionally stable kind of propulsion unit that ends up being super fast. And you know, this is also one of our narrowest boards, so rail to rail, it's really, really quick and it's really fast, and it ends up just being kind of a really fun kind of performance shortboard, you know, more than anything. Yeah.
Yeah, this board, I mean, like to compare the Bonzer bat, for instance, to the Space Pod. I mean, the narrowest Bonzer bat is only 18 inches wide, whereas the smallest Space Pod is still practically 20 inches wide. So I mean, that difference makes this board really, really quick rail to rail. But because of the Venturi hull bottom and the lift that's generated through that, it compensates for the narrow outline, gives you speed and glide, but just allows the thing to go rail to rail. It's the quickest rail to rail board in the whole Liquid Force surf line, I believe.
Yeah.
Really cool shape. And it surfs like a little, like the 4.2, you could ride a 4.4 pod at 180 pounds, but a 4.2 Bonzer is really more of a Grom board. The board surfs short, so a 4.6 feels like a little skateboard under your feet because it goes so quick rail to rail.
Yeah, I'd say like kind of if you're you're unsure on the sizes on that one, and if you're kind of in between sizes, definitely opt for the bigger size.
Yeah, totally.
Then
And you can see, you know, this is a great picture that really shows when you see the shadows. It really, the concave just rolls right up into the face, the inside face of the two outside fins, and it really accentuates and exaggerates the Venturi effect. And this is actually a very similar concept to what makes the Liquid Force Trip wakeboard work so well. Same kind of thing where you roll the concave right up into the fins. So next up is the Keen. And the Keen is our, you know, Atomic Series Performance Skim. If you look at the look of this board, you know, the glass, it's glass basically exactly like the Space Pod. It's got the same carbon and negra on the deck for longitudinal rigidity and impact strength. Comes in 3 sizes. Now, it comes with 3 fin box options, and that's just to give you versatility in your ride. Of course, Austin doesn't use any fin because, like I said earlier, you know, when I was talking about the difference between surf and skim style, when you're riding a skim, you're really working the rail. And, you know, Austin can lay into the hardest turn you can imagine on a board with no fin at all. Now, the Keen, it features a super lightweight core, stringered core, and like in that earlier photo of the flow analysis where you'd see the pressure differential, the first board shown, the single concave, was the Keen. And what this board has is a rail-to-rail single concave running through the entire hull, which provides a lot of lift. So that compensates for the lack of volume that this board has. It has a clean, rounded pintail shape, and then sharp rails nose to tail. And that's what gives you the drive and projection that that comes from this skim. It's a really efficient way of doing it on a really thin, low volume board. So next up, now we're moving into the Fleet series of boards. And these are still, they're still performance boards, but they're a little more user friendly. Sean Watson is who I worked with developing the Dart, and it's gone through a couple modifications over the seasons. Biggest one this season is we've pulled in the nose. We've made the board actually wider, right as it moves to your rear foot. And then you'll notice right as the rear pad, right behind the beginning of the rear pad, there's a wing. And that wing gives it a pivot point right where the outside fins are located. And then you're still allowed to keep a really full tail. But then in order to have control off of that tail and not have it just be too much lift, we put the moon tail in there and let a single concave flow through that whole area. So just like on the Keen board where the single concave generates lift, this is the concave running right out through that concave tail shape you see. So you have control, drive, and power. Now the number one thing I want to point out about the Dart is it's designed for versatility. It's got 5 fin boxes in it, and you get 5 fins with this board, but never, ever, ever, ever put all 5 fins in the board because it's for choice. You'll see that with this board, you get 2 large side fins and a slightly smaller center fin in the same kind of raked surf style shape that you'd typically find, on a thruster surfboard. So when you ride it as a thruster, you put the small symmetric center fin in the tail and the 2 large side fins on the outside frontmost fin boxes. Then if you want to ride it as a quad, get rid of the center fin, and then these little small stubby fins. They're very short base, short depth, only 1.5 inches deep, and it turns it into a really cool quad, gives the board a whole lot of projection. A thruster, it makes the board more pivotal. A quad makes the board project more. It's all about what feels right to you. And the thing about this, when we were experimenting with the board, we kept going back and forth between, well, do we want it a thruster? Do we want it a quad? And depending on who was riding it, the fin configuration changed. And so Sean and I and Pete, we all talked about it and went, let's just make this board be a board that anybody could ride. Anybody could hop on regardless of their style. It's even a board you could share with people and change the configurations from rider to rider. We also made it in one of the boards is in a really large size. So it's a very large volume board for our largest Dart. Next up is Tommy's performance board, and this is the TC Skim. And the TC Skim, it's a skim, we call it the skim. It's a skim style board, but it's unique in that it doesn't have just a plain, simple, single concave bottom. What this board has is as it runs through the tail, it turns into, there's channels, there's 4 channels running through the tail as it exits out the diamond tail shape. It allowed us to make the tail block wider than on Austin's board, but still have a lot of control. The other thing about this board, and you'll notice like in one of the pictures of Tommy there, is whereas Austin's board is a board that's really designed to do a lot of, you can do spin tricks, shove it really easily. Tommy's board is a skim board where you can ride it almost surf style. The channels give you projection and give you hold and allow you to project out of turns. And to watch Tommy ride this thing, you'd think he had 4-inch fins on the board, the way he really uses the channels to his benefit. Again, this is a board, we've reinforced the hull with this carbon stringer tape like on the other boards, and it's a totally removable, fin system. So you can upgrade the fin. You could put a larger fin on it if you want to have more grip and hold, or you could put a smaller fin on it if you want it to be a looser shape. And then rounding out the Fleet series is the Wildcat. And the Wildcat is just a simple kind of everybody's skim style board. It's a lower price point because there's only one fin box in it. Comes in 4 sizes because we offer it all the way down to a 48-inch size. And that's a great Grom size. This again features a single concave hull, but you'll notice the nose and the tail are blunted. So you have a little more surface area, say, than on a Keen, but that just gives you a little more forgiveness because this is not as performance oriented as the Keen, but still, you know, with all the skim benefits that you can get with you know, a simple, clean skim shape. Also features hard rails, nose to tail. Now we're moving into the Fun Unlimited series, and this is the Avant, and this is a Pete Merhoff experiment. Peter, I'd like you to explain the unique outline of the Avant. Why did you do that, and what are the benefits of that?
Okay. Yeah. So the Avant idea, again, kind of drawing some stuff from surf. I was kind of looking at a few similar surf shapes where they were experimenting with some side cut, but more to the fact of, you know, in my wake surfing career, I was realizing, you know, there was a ceiling for my skill level, and I kind of put myself in kind of the intermediate advanced category. And while I've unfortunately resigned myself from ever being able to do a big giant big spin or shove it or air out and do a 360, still wanted to try to progress and you know, with my wake surfing. So we started playing around with some side cut shapes with the idea of creating a board that would just turn really, really radically fast. Kind of, you know, looking at some different, what happens on the snow and with snowboard side cuts and stuff like that, and how that works on the snow, and try to bring that over into the wake surf world. So we came up with a couple different variations of the side cut, and we went out and tested them against some of our existing boards. And what we found is that the board was really fun to surf. And you know, one of the coolest things that I can say is, you know, in a bottom term, usually for me at least, it doesn't always feel great, and I have kind of a hard time getting right back in the pocket. But with this board, it was kind of no problem. And you could just go out, get kind of real far outside the wake and do a big kind of more aggressive bottom turn than what I normally would do. And it would just spit you right back into the pocket. So we kind of, you know, we knew we were on to something. So we played around with the shape a lot more, and we wanted the board to still be fast and still surf well. So, you know, that's why if you look at the board compared to other boards, you'll see that the wide point of the board is kind of where your front foot would be. So that really, you know, helps the board drive forward and keep your forward drive kind of similar to other boards without sacrificing anything that you might have lost with the side cut. And then the other aspect of it is these kind of cool hatchet fins that we put on the bottom. So these hatchet fins, they're kind of a narrower base than a standard wake surf fin, and then they have a really exaggerated rake. And what happens with that is when you load up in a turn and you load up the fin, the tip of the fin kind of flexes a little bit, and then at the end of your turn it snaps back, and it gives you just that little extra attack, or, you know, a little bit of extra wump in that turn to kind of complement what's happening with the side cut in terms of making it just a really sharp, quick board with a sharp turning radius, that, you know, you can surf it a little bit bigger, but it feels like a much shorter board.
And I've noticed, like on this board, because, you know, it's got such a parallel plan shape, that it allowed you to go narrower than you typically go on a board where, you know, it flares out to its widest point through the middle. So it seems like every time I've ridden this board, it's really quick rail to rail, almost Bonzer-ish, you know, how quickly it goes rail to rail.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And the hatchet fins are, you know, that was like a really cool addition to your shape. You know, I think that kind of gave it a little extra magic.
Yeah. Yeah, another aspect on this is this board has kind of a deeper concave on the deck of the board. So that, you know, in turn with kind of the other things we talked about with the rail shape and the fins, seems to kind of help you lock into the board feeling a little bit in terms of your turns. And, you know, if you're kind of an average surfer, it makes you feel like a pro. So that's what I found, at least.
All right. And then next up is our other board in the Fun Unlimited series, and this is El Guapo. For those of you that don't speak Spanish, it's the handsome one. And, you know, everybody looks good riding a Guapo because it works in, you don't need the biggest wave, you know, you don't need the biggest boat. You're just going to have the biggest smile. Anybody can nose ride it. It carries its glide super easy. It's the most, it's the surf style board with the largest volume in our whole line. We make it in a 5.2 and a 5.6, but just because it's at that size doesn't mean you can't turn it. It's super maneuverable. And one of the things that helps with that is, unlike the other boards where it's got a fin box that's designed for one position for you to put that fin, on the Guapo, it's got a single center fin box that's a 10-inch box. So it's basically like changing the wheelbase, you know, on a skateboard. You move the fin all the way forward and it's going to turn quicker. If you move it all the way back, it'll draw out the turns, but also moving it back helps you nose ride. And then what really helps it nose ride more than anything is underneath on the underside of the board on the hull, right at the nose area, kind of right where it's, you see that red area of the EVA pad. It's a very pronounced concave spoon shape. And that just provides this area of incredible lift right at the nose of the board. So you can literally, I mean, this is a board where you can have 1 foot on the nose on that all red patch. You can have your second foot to the back of where the gray is on the second pad and still be able to turn it and go up and down the wake. And it's just a board that's all about fun. So it's the board you can share with everybody in the boat, and it's the board that you can teach anybody to wake surf on and get them stoked in their first go out. So that rounds out the Fun Unlimited series. Now we're moving into our DuraSurf line. And what the DuraSurf line is every one of these shapes is a board that all started off in our highest end construction. These are all, you know, tried and true, proven shapes that were all, you know, originally handmade. You know, like for instance, this pod starts off, you know, like a handmade board, just like this. This is one of the pod protos. And after testing it, after being stoked, and then just coming up with a new way of making boards, then we come up with the pod. And the biggest thing, you know, just that I want to show you, you could never do this on our higher end boards. This thing is super durable, but it has a lightweight EPS core in it. So it's really close to the weight of the Space Pod, but it costs a lot less because it's a different construction process. It's very durable, like I said. And this one features a quad setup. Again, you can ride it as a twin. If you want it to be super loose for the pod, you just remove those smaller little stubbies. And those smaller stubbies they're designed to always go in the tail on this board. You put the small fins closest to the tail. You put the large fins further up the board, you know, closer to the rail. It's very quick rail to rail, and it's full nose and full tail allows you to ride a really short board because it's basically crunching a whole bunch of volume into a small shape. Next up is the Happy Pill, and the Happy Pill, you know, is exactly what it is. It's a board that makes you smile. Nobody's going to be bummed if somebody shows up with a Happy Pill to the boat. It's easy to ride, but it's also gives you performance. Not as high performance as the pod. It's very forgiving. It has a softer rail at the nose, and you notice it's got a big, wide, round nose, kind of like a fish surfboard. but then a real full wide rounded square tail in the rear. So you've got a board with a lot of drive and projection, a lot of natural float. And our biggest size is 5'4". So that'll like float somebody even up to 250 pounds easily, because it's, you know, it's almost 30 liters of volume. It's about 28 liters of volume. Our next two boards in the DuraSurf family are the Primo and the Primo LTD. And these are boards developed with Tommy Shishane. And what's cool about the Primo is, you know, I've talked about earlier what is surf style versus skim style. And while we were working on the Primo, and this was something we did after we had originally developed the first TC skim, is we wanted a board that wasn't just so dedicated to the skim concept. We wanted to take the surfability of the TC skim shape and give it just a little bit more volume, give it a little bit more rocker so that it would have a little more float. So you could truly kind of bridge the gap and kind of have a hybrid shape. It's ended up being one of our most popular, one of our best selling boards because of its inherent versatility. It's got more float than the TC skim or the Keen, but not as much as the pod. It's got more rocker than those boards. And then also, if you'll notice, it comes with 3 fin boxes, and you'll see the fin shapes. They're completely different looking fins. Now, this is a board where it's designed to be ridden one way or the other. There's a sticker on the bottom of the board when you get it, and it says designed to be ridden as a twin. If you want to ride it surf style, or as a single fin if you want to ride it skim style. So if you just put the 2 large outside fins in on either side rail, you've got a super loose, really lively twin fin. And then if you want to ride it skim style, you take out those big outside side fins and then just put in a small, long base but shallow center fin, and then you've got a skim style board. So the Primo, you know, is just super versatile in that regard. And it comes in 4 sizes, from a Grom size all the way up to a big guy's 5'3". Along with the versatility that the Primo offered, we started playing with adding foot straps on it. You know, some people said, hey, it's cheating. Well, you know what? It's not cheating. I mean, if you're having fun, you're just, you're just outsmarting everybody. You're not cheating. And the thing about the Primo LTD is if you know what you're doing and you ride it with foot straps, it can help you learn how to do airs and do tricks that you couldn't otherwise do without the board getting disconnected from you. If you want to teach somebody how to wake surf, what's so cool about having the foot straps in a learning phase is that, you know, one of the hardest things to do is to get people to engage their weight in the right position and to put their feet in the right position, specifically, you know, getting off of their heel side weight and getting a lot of weight on your front foot, on your front toes, and pointing the board towards the boat. So with the foot straps, it helps you keep your feet in the right place, pop up instantly centered on the board, and then have your balance point where you need it to be naturally to stay in the wake easily. And then you take the straps off and you don't need them. So you just use it as a teaching tool. So you either use it as so the straps are there for either to take your performance to a whole nother level and do the airs that Pete says he can't do, but he can really do because I've seen him do it. And, or just use it to help teach people how to wake surf easily. So next batch of boards, our last batch of boards, are our breakthrough series. And for the breakthrough series, you know, these are the ones where it's all about, you know, having a decent board at a very affordable price. So these are the only boards that feature a polyurethane core. And basically the difference between polyurethane core and an EPS core is that it's just denser. And with the increase in density, you get an increase in weight, but you get a radical increase in strength. And then we offer 2 skim shapes, the Swami, which is for, you know, regular size riders, comes in a 53 and a 58. It's a single fin, single concave, sharp rails, nose to tail. And then the Grommy which is for kids, 46 inches, you know, a little exaggerated nose rocker, but basically, you know, a scaled down version of the Swami. What we also do with the Grommy is we offer an LTD version of the Grommy, which means it comes with foot straps. And that, for a teaching tool for teaching little kids how to wake surf, it will cut through hours, if not days, if not weeks, of getting them to be able to get in the right position and drop the rope as quickly as possible. Because all the same things, it forces them to put their feet in the right position. It helps them pop out of the water a lot easier because they're controlling the board underneath their feet. And then once they're up and standing, they're naturally positioned in a way where they have enough weight on their front foot and their front toes so that they glide forward instead of like stalling backwards and holding onto the rope and losing the weight. So a Grommy LTD is like, it's the ultimate board to teach a kid to wake surf because you've got that extra help of the straps, and then you can take them off once they figure it out, and then they can move their feet around. Last board in the line is the Rocket, and the Rocket is our surf style version of a breakthrough board. And this is a really simple, clean, just no nonsense performance shape. Instead of being some big, huge surf style board, instead of making it really long, really wide, what we've done is just put a really efficient single concave through it. And if you remember back to that picture where you saw that big blue area on the board where it was showing the analysis, the flow analysis and the pressure difference, and the blue meaning that was the least amount of drag. Well, that's what you have on the bottom of the Rocket. So it's allowed us to make the board a little narrower, a little thinner, and that lightens it up and gets it lively. So a 4/8 is a really loose, flexible board. It ships with 3 fins. And this is one where you can ride it as a thruster, or you could ride it as a single fin, or you could take that center fin out and make it, you know, a loose twin fin. So you have versatility on this. And this goes from 4/8 to 5/0. And then the big one is the 5/4 for, you know, if you got a big rider, he can still have a board that's very easy, or it'll maintain its glide and projection behind the wake. So, which is the right board for you? I guess now's the time for some questions or comments. Anybody, you know, wondering after seeing that many boards, you know, how do I pick the right board for you? How can I help you?
Yeah, Jimmy, I was gonna say you must have done a really good job explaining because there aren't any questions that have come through on the chat.
Oh, I'm bummed. There's got to be something.
The last couple we had a lot, but I think, I mean, for me, you covered this pretty well. So,
well, it doesn't have to be what's the right board for you. You can ask me weird questions too. You know, that's fine too. But you know, there's a lot of information to digest because the thing about our wake surf line is it constantly is growing because every time we go out riding, every time we go and test something, it creates a new idea. We go, oh, what if we could tweak that? What if we change this tail shape? Let's play with fins, you know, like Pete, we were playing with the Avant, and then Pete starts playing with this completely weird hatchet fin shape that just makes the board magic. And you know, because everybody really likes to have their own personalized wake surfer, you know, and find that magic board that works for them. We're the same way, you know, but we've got the luck of being able to, you know, we can imagine it, make it, create it, go and test it. And if it's a complete failure, we just go back to the drawing board and do it all over again, and we're stoked. So, I mean, it's just a line that keeps, it's constantly evolving at a very quick pace. And, you know, even now, I mean, for the next season, for 2021, we've gotten brand new boards that create brand new feelings and whole new riding experiences. And it's just a really exciting time to be a wake surf shaper and designer because it's fun.
hey, Jimmy, there actually are a couple questions and some comments. One, one comment actually from Rhonda Clark. I think she was the first one that had signed on besides us. So
Right, Rhonda.
stoked to have her on this. She just has a comment. She just said she has the pod, thought maybe she'd be looking for a different model, but seems that she's on the right board. So that's awesome, Rhonda. If there's a reason you thought maybe you should be on a different board, maybe hit a follow-up question and we can help you out. But otherwise, glad to hear you're on one that you like.
Yeah, I would say, you know, Rhonda, the thing about the pod is the pod before it became a Durasurf board, it was our number one selling Atomic Series board. And it was so successful that it was kind of like, well, what could we do to make this board better? And really what we came down with is, wow, if we could figure out a way to make it more durable without making it heavier and make it cost a little less and not sacrifice performance, that'd be pretty unreal. So yeah, you picked a great board. It's one of my favorites. You know, it's the one I got right here behind me. You know? And is this the graphic you have? Or you have the earlier one? Oh, no, I couldn't tell. But yeah, you've got a great board, and you've got a great board that's very versatile too. You know, I'd say if you want to like expand your experience on the pod and try some new tricks, one thing you can do is next time you go out, take out those rear stubby fins, and it allows you to get your back foot literally behind the two large side fins, and the board becomes really slippery, and that's the easiest way to learn how to do a 360 on the pod.
Cool. And then I noticed you had a follow-up question about do we have demos of boards up in the Calgary area in Lake Country, BC? I'm sure we do. I don't truthfully know like where to send you, but you'll get a follow-up email from me after this. And if nothing else, I'll get you in touch with our rep up there. Jeff here is a long time. He used to be a pro wakeboarder. Now he's our sales rep up there. So I'll at least get you in touch with him, and he can get you into the right, right place for that.
Cool.
Next question, Jimmy. We've got from Chris. Says he's 240 pounds and he surfs behind an Axis T22. Pretty new to surfing. What board would you recommend?
I'd say if he's new to surfing and he's at that weight, the boards would be, well, the Guapo for sure would work behind any boat and still be super fun. He could ride the 5.2, you know, Chris, you could ride the 5.2 or you could ride the 5.6. The 5.6 isn't going to be a radical sacrifice in performance. It's just going to give you like an extra 3 liters of volume for more float. And then if you wanted, say, something with more performance and you wanted to give that a shot, more surf style, more aggressive, I'm not sure exactly where your ability level's at, I would suggest the Dart 5.3 because that's the next board that has the highest volume. And because of the single concave, it provides a lot of natural glide and forward projection.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add too is if it's, for Chris, if he's just looking for something that to just get started on and maybe have a board that's in the boat forever, and then eventually as he gets better, he jumps onto something else. The Rocket is a great starting point too. What's our biggest one? The 5.6.
The biggest Rocket is 5.4.
5.4. Okay.
But from a standpoint of, I mean, if he doesn't mind that the Guapo costs a little more, it has so much more glide and natural float than the Rocket, simply because it's the Durasurf construction. So the core is like a fraction of the weight, and it'll ride really easy. And I mean, you ride the Guapo.
I was gonna say, that's my favorite board.
Yeah. So.
Cool. Nice. We got Mark Porteous. It's like he's calling into a radio show. Long time LFer, first time caller. I love it. He says, Jimmy, I picked up the 20 space pod and it is awesome. Well done.
Yes.
his question is actually related to the dart that he also has. A rider sent it into the back of the boat, picked up a slight crack along the edge of the tip. Recommendation on how to fix.
Okay, so the number one thing on fixing these boards is all of the fiberglass boards. And if you should smash a Durasurf board to the point where you actually crack the shell, the core's EPS, which is styrene. So you have to use epoxy resin. You know, regular fiberglass resin, really regular polyester resin, that will melt styrene. So the best way to fix it is, you know, you can, depends on how big the ding is, but you know, you can find epoxy resin at, you know, boat repair shops, or if you're, depending on where you live, if you have access to a surf shop, you can find the clearer versions of epoxy, but make sure you use epoxy resin. If it's a ding where it's kind of a, you know, like a gouge, and you've got to fill kind of a hole, you can mix this stuff called Cabasil. It's basically a powder, and you mix it in with the resin, and it makes it into a paste, and then you can basically fill that whole area and then sand it flush.
Hey, and that ding repair kit that we have online would be a perfect example, right? Or is
Yeah.
that...
Yeah, we were selling both, and as long as we still have the epoxy repair kit, that could work for him as well. Maybe if he wants to, you know, later send a picture of the ding. You know, if he doesn't mind sending a picture of the ding, then I could basically let him know, could let you know, Chris, you know, the extent of what you would need to repair it.
Cool.
And
that was for Mark.
From Mark. Oh, excuse me. And when in doubt, you know, I mean, that's why they created duct tape.
Exactly.
You know, in the interim, use duct tape, because the thing is, you don't want. Sorry, we got the leaf blower outside. You don't want the water to get into the core, especially the lightweight EPS core, because it's you know, the density is so low, it will suck in water, and then that can damage your board. So you do want to protect your investment.
Cool. We got a couple other questions and a couple other comments. This is from Tristan. It says, "Hey Jimmy, off topic, but where do you put the messenger into that? I know it is a kite surfing, but would you consider surfing it behind a boat?" Do you know what that is?
Wow, that's a trippy question. You know, it's funny. There's been these videos where there's one that Harley just posted the other day, where a buddy whipped him into a boat wake. He was like going really fast behind a jet ski, and then he whipped into the wake. But the issue is, even with a kiteboard, is you know, there's still an awful lot of tail rocker that's even in a kiteboard shape. And the messenger shape, you know, it has obviously less tail rocker than a Wakesurf board, but you're in a point where you have too much tail rocker to really work properly as a wake surfer, and you don't have enough nose rocker to keep you from hanging it up. So, and then because it's the messenger, that's also, you know, a CNC'd wood core board, so it doesn't have a whole lot of inherent volume and natural buoyancy.
Sweet.
But that's why that's why we have so many wake surfers to choose from. You can go kiting one day and then hop on any one of these 38 different wake surfers.
And then this guy gets a gold star. It's our friend Billy Witcher out in the East Coast.
All right.
He's for people that don't know him, he works for By Wake, one of our great online partners. But he just has a comment: "Great clinic, Jimmy. Happy Pill is still his go-to surfer. Absolutely love that shit."
That's unreal.
That's
well,
awesome.
Try the pod, man, because it's the transition from the pill to the pod. You'll love that one too.
All right, and then this is a great question. I don't know if it's Carissa or Caris, but says, "I'm 65 years old and I weigh 220 pounds. I've been riding for about a year. Looking for a board to help my progression. I surf behind a MB22 Tomcat."
Again, I would say, you know, for at a certain size and ability level, the Guapo is such a user-friendly board, but then it lets you progress. And you know, the kind of moves you can do. I mean, it's a blast to hang 5 on a board, and it's really easy to turn. And the fact that it has that 10-inch pin box where you can change the turning radius as you get better, as you get more comfortable on the board, you can make it turn quicker by just simply adjusting the position of the fin. It'll also, you know, support your weight very easily and help keep you in the wave, even when, you know, maybe you get into shallow water and the wave gets a little sloppy and a little, you know, not as steep. And I'd say that's the best one because of its sheer volume and buoyancy.
Awesome. Well, hopefully that answers everybody's questions. I'm trying to see if there's anything else coming through. It doesn't look like we have anything else. So I think this is a good time as any to wrap this up. First, I want to thank Jimmy and Pete, obviously, for taking the time and passing on their knowledge. It's you know, I've worked with Jimmy for, you know, 23 years or whatever, and I'm always learning from him. And Pete I've worked with for, you know, a lot less than that, but still a good enough amount of time to, you know, realize he really knows what he's talking about, and he's super fun to listen to his ideas too. So thanks to you guys. And then, you know, obviously the participants, you know, like I said, some of you I've seen in multiple versions of this, and it's awesome having you guys come back. For those, this is your first one, thanks for joining us. We'll have, you know, more of these. We're trying to maybe not do one every week, but one every couple of weeks. You know, we picked a time that we think works great for everybody, but when you get the follow-up email, feel free to hit me up if you guys think in the future a different time might work better. We might try to accommodate that. And yeah, remember, I'll be sending out the email, so you'll get the, you know, you'll get a video of this to kind of listen to Jimmy and listen to Pete more if you need to have a little more time to understand all the technical details. And yeah, it's great. We really appreciate you guys, and seriously hope everyone is being safe, being healthy, and you know, have a great summer. Hopefully you're spending a ton of time on the water, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thank you very much.
And I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. I mean, you gave me the opportunity to talk about what I really love. And you know, like Don said, there's more coming. We've got a whole series of boards for behind the boat, as well as cable boards that we're going to be talking about. And if you've got any questions or you think about anything that you want to ask further, you can contact me at jimmyr@liquidforce.com, and I will get around to answering your email. It might not be immediate, but you're teaching me as much as I want to learn from y'all as much as I can. So thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks everybody. See you next time.